So you can see it's okay.
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. Good morning, first of all. This is Sevde. On behalf of my colleague and my PhD supervisor, Gül, I'll be presenting. I'm an architect and I'm a research assistant at Erciyes University in Turkey, architectural faculty. So the title of this presentation will be Mapping Current Trends on Gamification of Cultural Heritage. The presentation consists of 4 parts. The first one is the introduction part, which contains the conceptual framework of the study and the summary of the purpose and scope. The second is the materials and the methods part. And the third is the results and discussions of the analysis carried out under 2 stages, which are bibliometric data analysis and term keyword network analysis. In the 4th part and the last part, I will convey the conclusions of this study. The conceptual framework of this study is shaped around 3 main definitions. The first is the concept of game, defined as fictional, structured, meaningful entertainment medium, environment. In addition, the game offers learning, social interaction opportunities. Factors such as the prevalence and accessibility of the game environment and the possibility to encourage user to non-game context area reveal the tendency to use the game and gamification as a method in the studies produced in various fields. The second is the cultural heritage that is related and correlated with digital technology under the main objectives of documentation, representation, and dissemination. Associated with these 2, the third definition that constitutes the conceptual background of this study is the concept of interpretation of cultural heritage. This concept defines the communication designs aimed to fill the gap between the cultural heritage and the individual in accordance of intending to heighten the public awareness and to enhance the understanding of cultural heritage. In this context, there are 2 main terms that need to be emphasized in interpretation of cultural heritage. Firstly, it's an effort to transform cultural heritage into a compression that everyone can understand without the need for expertise. And secondly, it's a communication approach in which the active participation of individuals and the individual experience is prioritized. The problem statements defined in this study are shaped within the framework of these definitions. These statements briefly pointed out the context of the state of providing a platform for documentation, presentation, and representation of cultural heritage, and the possibility of creating a medium that enables the dissemination of cultural heritage. The second statement opens up and details this statement, starting from the point of cultural heritage field. Game-based approaches allow a wide spectrum of related studies on cultural heritage. These can be exemplified as the digitization of cultural heritage, creating a virtual and learning experience, and defining a method. As a result of these features, the literature shows that the studies in which the game is related to cultural heritage increase with acceleration. So this study aims to reveal the literature in which these possibilities are discussed, presented, experienced by focusing on instrumenting game and highlight the gamification of cultural heritage field. And with this study, a literature mapping is made within the framework of these possibilities, and a bibliometric analysis is made to reveal the current trend. So the bibliometric indicators developed were built upon the data obtained from the scientific publications through the Elsevier Scopus scientific database. The search expression consists of applying the words game, gamification, and cultural heritage to the advanced search tool by using Boolean operators, as you can see on the slide. And the data provided from the year 2020 is not included due to the consideration of the date this study was conducted. The final data set consists of bibliometric data of 257 recordings. The data analyses are conducted under two main stages, as I stated before. The first one is bibliometric analysis, in which the Scopus analyze result tool and MS Excel is the main tool. The data source in this stage are the bibliometric data of the records, such as the time span, subject area, citation count, publishers, region, country, and organization information. In the second stage, the term keyword network analysis, WOS-Weaver and MS Excel is used as the main tools. The data source is the author and index keywords and abstract text of the recordings. I will convey the information of subcategories and synthesis methods stated on the diagram for each analyzing the results and discussion session. So the first stage, bibliometric data analysis, conducted under three categories. Scientific production and activity analysis has been made to reveal the acceleration of stated tendency as it presented on the graphic. The prominent finding of the analysis is on scientific area distribution in which this publications takes place. As it can be seen on the graphic, computer science ranks first among whole. Considering the number and distribution of the records related to the arts and humanities area covering the cultural heritage studies, it is possible to conclude that the discussions about cultural heritage are relatively low referred. Main journals and impacting documents analysis has been made to reveal the prominent publications and journals. For this purpose, the articles in the datasets are ranked on accordance of their citation count, and the journals in datasets were ranked on accordance of their impacting factors. These analyses revealed that there is a close relationship between the number of citations from a specific publication and the most active journals in the area, as it highlighted with colors on the table. The last category of bibliometric data analysis is the international collaboration analysis. These analyses enabled us to reach the findings regarding the countries in which the publications are concentrated and the international collaboration. So general distribution among countries shows that production is dense in European countries. Before I go further into the term keyword network analysis, I would like to briefly introduce the conceptual scheme on which these analyses are based. As I stated before, game-based approaches in literature are in an increasing trend. In addition, it is possible to say that the same increasing trend is also in integration of game-based approaches with learning. These trend approaches utilizing the educational theories such as experimental active position learning and which are mediated with technology, referring to blending the term edutainment, playful learning, serious games, and gamification. As a result of this statement, cultural heritage attracts the attention of researchers as one of the potential areas of these blended approaches. However, the implementation of game-based approaches requires the interpretations of cultural heritage in multiple stages. At this point, it is necessary to mention the pioneering charter of ICOMOS for the interpretation and presentation of cultural heritage. In the light of these concepts I mentioned, especially those included in charter, 4 basic sub-concepts were created at this stage of the analysis. First one includes the concepts primarily related to cultural heritage itself. Second one includes the concepts related to the game and game-based approaches, which are the interpretation tools, mediums, environments, and methods. Third one is the concepts of individual users' experience, perception, learning, and interaction, covering the concerns on the addressers. And the fourth is on achieving the ultimate goal of preservation, protection, maintenance of the cultural heritage. Sorry. The keyword network, the term keyword network analysis is first category. Keyword network analysis were performed by using the Wolfsweaver tool and obtained by fractalization of the co-occurrence and linking counts of the predefined index and author keywords of the records on the data set. The results of both analyses have shown that the top 10 keywords directly related to cultural heritage are serious game, virtual reality, human-computer interaction, augmented reality, education, 3D computer graphics, gamification, game design, game engine, computer games, respectively. These concepts interpreted through the keywords do not include the concepts associated with protection and dissemination of cultural heritage directly. In addition, and the majority of the concepts are related to the game-based approaches. In this context, literature consisting the game-based approaches on cultural heritage subject area is interpreted that they do not constitute a sufficient discussion medium on cultural heritage area. The second stage, term co-occurrence. These analyses were obtained by using the term co-occurrence of text data function on Wolfsweaver tool. Looking at the content of the clusters, which were formed based on relativity of the terms stated in studies, it was observed that blended approaches were made within the framework of game-based approaches and cultural heritage by concerning the terms user player and technology tool. And it was observed that subterms stated in previous sections related to cultural heritage and learning are at the lower parts of the ranking. As it can be seen on the network web, this visualization reveals that the concept sets do not diverge from each other. So the findings of the study pointed out that the game-based approaches are dealt with cultural heritage within the context of instrumentalization, methodization, and providing a medium. Discussing the potentials offered by the game-based approaches to the field of cultural heritage by not addressing conservation dissemination problems causes the necessity of questioning the scientific production to unveil the role of architecture, cultural heritage in game-based approaches. The condensation of studies in above-mentioned framework leads to the consequence that the potentials provided by game-based approaches in the field of cultural heritage have not yet been sufficiently discussed in the literature. So to summarize, in this paper, we try to present a bibliometric analysis about game-based approaches in cultural heritage field. But it should be noted that the scientific production in this subject matter is in its early steps and requires cooperation of the related studies and its disciplines. It has been drawn the following conclusions of firstly, the publication trend in this area has been in an increased tendency. Given that the studies associated with learning theories, the learning habits of current generation targeted in game-based approaches are the main factor to use this method. Increasing support of UNESCO and European Commission and similar institutions to the studies produced within this framework is evaluated as another parameter causing this trend. Secondly, the contributions on this area is accumulated in European countries. The supporting funds can be considered among these factors that affect this situation. And the third, most of the contribution to this field is related to the scientific subject area, computer science. And the results of the term network analysis confirm that the major concerns of publications are on the game design approaches. Studies involving these approaches are associated with this field due to the requirements of the tools and methods used. But considering that these studies are related to the cultural heritage area and the possibilities it provides to this area, establishing primary relevance with the cultural heritage scientific area is important in terms of discussing its scientific contribution to the literature. So this exploratory work has helped us to make important statements about blending gamification approaches in cultural heritage. Within the body of this evidence identified in this study, there is a distinct lack of contribution on assessment of actual potentials of game for interpretation and presentation of cultural heritage. So these are the references, and thank you for your attention.
Cool, we thank you as well. I mean, for my side, it wasn't as exciting one because I also worked on games and cultural heritage when I was doing my master's thesis in Barcelona. So yeah, I was also interested in that. But also we have to keep on. So next presentation is from Barış Atiker. If you are ready, Barış.
Yes, I'm ready. I'm waiting for you.
Cool. Okay. I think that you have the ability to share your screen now, if
yes,
I'm not mistaken.
Is it visible right now?
Yeah.
Can you see? Okay, great. So let's just start in a fast way. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for this giving the presentation opportunity to me, because it is such an honor for me to join the event, and also where a lot of precious names in the field has done such a great work here. So I want to start my presentation with the definition of spatial typography. And what spatial typography means is it's a concept where the text is in direct and instant relationship with the real or virtual space. So the connections of spatial typography between space, time, and meaning interact with the movement of the reader. Reading from a text from different angles, in particular, change the message given within the perspective view. So immersive design practices such as augmented reality, virtual reality, and what we call extended reality offer an excellent environment for the fluent nature of spatial typography. So spatial typography embodies challenges such as legibility, orientation, variable ground relation, and font selection, of course, just like motion typography. In addition, instantaneous change of the text according to the dynamic content, motion tracking and placement, flexibility of transition between different platforms, multi-user experience, and even its interaction with artificial intelligence are among the current topics. So designers accustomed with dealing with the flat pictorial paradigms of print are now dealing with the architectural, ergonomic, cinematic paradigms of environmental and immersive media. The evolution of...
Can you just move the screen a little bit, because we just see the half of the presentation?
Oh, really? Really, for that? Because I do have... Yes. Is it okay right now? I'm not seeing what you're seeing right now. It's okay?
It's the same. Ah, now it's okay.
It's okay? Okay, cool. So I have a huge screen. That's why, sorry for that. I'm just moving over the presentation so I can read my notes. And if it's okay, then I'm continuing.
That's great right now.
Okay, the evolution of typography has accelerated in the last century, especially after digitalization, with motion typography gaining new functions on the axis of time and motion, and has turned into an image that is no longer read, but watched. The biggest challenge of typography facing today is the relationship with the immersive design applications such as AR, VR, because the relationship of typography to the reader was always restricted to a frame, a page, a signage, or a screen. So the relationship between typography and space is as old as the relationship between architecture and design. The reason for this lies in the attempt to pass one story to the future generations, just like the monuments and the text written on them. And Dadaism and Futurism, the greatest anti-order movements of the 20th century, broke all the known rules by opposing the disappearance of text on the two-dimensional axis as an expressive indicator of meaninglessness and defiance. So this typographic space is neither a book space, where typography acts as the invisible servant, nor film space, where one attends as an expressive typographic performance. It is something different, a truly enhanced typographic space enriched by the possibility of user interaction. What is needed here is for the reader to discover that true point of view, or POV, within the space so that the writing can reach its meaning. The moment of the text initiates a tracking process with varying coordinates. Here is an example from an artist that I really like, Sebastian Lem, and in his work, as you can see, this is a three-dimensional construction of a typographic work, which you have to go to the right point of view to read the text. Otherwise, it will be just meaningless shapes. So this is the first relationship between the typography and the space itself, but in a non-digital environment. And so we can talk about the typography in motion, because spatial typography has so much to do common with the typography in motion, because it has the same quality and it has the same opportunities where text or typography can get an emotional sense. So the relationship of the text with the moving image has been abstracted unusually in artist works, especially in avant-garde, and has met new limits in terms and forms of meaning. According to David Small, who is a pioneer artist in working with the digital media and typography, and he was just constructing these environmental spaces. And he says that by escaping the confines of the flat sheet of paper, we can arrange information into meaningful landscapes that exhibit qualities of misery, continuity, and visual delight. And here's a scene of his work. It's a work called Virtual Shakespeare by David Small. And of course, also here we can talk about the Muriel Cooper, who was the real pioneer of the relationship between the digital typography and the space. And because there is a story going on underneath these constructions. So what makes our typography special and special typography? It's about the interaction. So hypertext, as we know, provides a structure for nonlinearity in text, where in-text links connect a linear piece of text or writing with a conceptually connected text or image structure somewhere else in the information space of the internet. So similarly, hypertext, which acquired flow and impermanence properties in the moving images, maintain these properties in interactive environments and turned into an image that responds to the user's movements. I want to share a very old, like 2015 example about a VR application from IKEA, which was a constellation by doing these catalogs into three-dimensional virtual reality environments, where you can change the colors of the furniture that you are going to buy and maybe fit them into your own spaces. And you see the Verdana font where IKEA uses from his catalogs, it's still here and with an environmental and special typography. And the latest transformation of the typography takes place through immersive media. With the digital format, the text copied from the real world is now interacting with the new virtual and augmented reality. The most important criterion for the interaction of typography with the virtual world is its perfect adaptation to the immersion. In other words, it is impossible to separate the text from the image. The distance of the text to the reader in the virtual world makes it both possible and necessary to be in constant change. In other words, as the reader relocates in the virtual world, the text must change according to the reader's changing position in order to maintain its position. Here, there is a medical application, both using these augmented and virtual reality. It's called Medivis, and where the doctors can see the medical content in virtual environments, and then they can also interact with each other, and you see their names, and also in the model there are some specific information related to the environments. and the content. And again, the gestural interface and the interaction with type overpowers the content component to the text, but shows the possibility of engagement and enhancements in experiencing people will gain from typographic interaction with the textual entities. First of all, immersive media isolate and change the reader from his own real world. In this case, the frame in which the text is located is no longer a two-dimensional plane, but a spherical frame. Immersive typography means the integration of the text with the story in terms of meaning and content, which must already be in harmony with its environments. So here we have to talk about the principles because the principles of typography in print world is a little bit different and inadequate for special typography. The basic design principles are not effective, are still effective, but often inadequate. Just because the design principles are mainly determined by considering the static property of the text. With the acquisition of interactivity, text has become a tool. With the conversion of text into a moving image, a problem of visibility as well as legibility arose, and with the acquisition of the interactivity, text has become a tool. Intelligibility, although the concept of legibility with motion typography or moving typography has been replaced by the concept of intelligibility. It's still valid due to the informative nature of text, especially in the immersive media. So it's not only seeing the typography or understanding the typography, but also understanding the concept behind the typography. So here is an artwork, and it's also an experimental VR typography tool by Juneza Niazi. And here you see an S ladder, which is formed by like 10,000 spheres. And it's all three-dimensional typography. It's not just to look from one side, but of course it is also changing in dynamics in an animated form. So intelligibility is the concept where the legibility and visibility changes to another era. And of course, the basic principles where we call about the typography still insist on the special typography, and we can start with the contrast. As a definition, a simple definition, the color and tone of the text requires a high contrast use due to the shape-ground relationship. In print, it's really simple because you put a dark background in front of a light colored typography, but in the special typography, the background is always changing according to place of the reader, so there should be a stable contrast between the foreground and the background, where you put the foreground as a text. And also, we can talk about the display, as this is a digital environment. So the differences in screen display, like quality, surface, size, ratio, refresh rate, orientation, and also rendering technology and default system fonts have made type functionality a key consideration of digital design. You cannot use every font in immersive typographic works, or you cannot just use small typography, thin typography. You have to be really careful about the display, display quality of the tools that you are using. And most of the time, the resolution is really important in that point. And we are working with it 4K, 8K, and maybe 10K in a coming technologies. But still, we see these pixels, which makes it a really hard and difficult experience for us to immerse the typography. And also, we can always talk about the style of the fonts and the typography, where the development of digital typography, the fact that the font styles that have diversified do not have the same effect on the screen and paper is really a good problem, an important problem, because when you use thin typography or slim typography, most of the time you lose the background, the relationship contrast, so it will be a problem. And also we can move on the weights. The fonts with different weights in particular need to be optimized for the display. And also height of the width of the typographic block is really important to read. And also most with the legibility, but also with the visibility of the blocks and type blocks. and also the alignment of the typography with the motion design elements, because you're not only using these virtual elements as a tool, and also you are using the motion design elements. So they both affect the visibility and legibility of the text. Here is an example where Porsche is working with this driving interface. It's in the windshield, so you can see where the park spaces are available and the distance between you and the park space. So you see these P letters are also as an occlusion property, and you have to understand the display properties for such an interactive interface to use. But this is only a concept. It's still being developed by also with the Tesla as a project like this. So you will be gaining instant information from the places in a three-dimensional world where you will get the typography fitting into the space and showing you some specific information about your aims. And we can also talk about the perspective, because we are talking about spatial typography, the environment and the places, it's three-dimensional space. So the perspective is really important. And most of the typographic elements are designed for two-dimensional environments. When we design the typographic elements in two-dimensional, but now there is a limitation with using these isometric three-dimensional typography, and where you can only put two-dimensional typography into the scenes, but when you put some three-dimensional typography to the scene, then there might be some perspective problems within the frame. And here is another example where an advertising agency called OMS has done for a printwork, a printing company. But these are the posters, as you see in the picture, are still posters. But when you just look at them by through the smartphones, then they just become the three-dimensional turning typography. As a it implies the meaning of the poster, by the way, because it's printworks and these cylinders, the printing cylinders, are working just like in the real world. So this is an immersion where you can get the concept better, and very, very smart and minimalist solution. And what we can talk about, this interaction becomes with the navigation. So the use of text as an interface element is an important factor affecting the user, especially in complex immersive environments where multiple functions coexist. So you have to understand what the text directs the user, if it's a menu, if it's an informative space, if it's a story, whatever it is, the experience must be very well navigated by the typography. And there are not only just click actions, but also gaze-based and also the audio light-based and olfactory navigation styles, which were just concepts until these days, but the technology is so improved to make these dreams come true. We have those kind of dreams from 19s and 60s, but now they are possible. We are just getting a better navigation with text right now. And here is a work from an artist who works with immersive and spatial typography called Yoon Park. Maybe you have seen his work before. He opens exhibition with typography in different spaces where not only the designer makes this typography visible to the audience, but also the audience can join with an interaction and put their own text, own words into that space. This is a very good example of navigational type. And also you can see different kind of environments can include digital and spatial typography, where the direction and the immersiveness happens in a really collaborative space. And we can also talk about the principles which are not available for the two-dimensional print type, which is one of them is the haptics, or it's about the senses that included in the experience, where you can just touch and you can feel the texture or the material of any element that you are touching. Some current technologies, haptic technologies, can create different tissue sensations at your fingertips by using audio waves. And through the sound waves, and so this can provide a new reality between the reader and the text. And occlusion is another new concept where the digital images were put on the real life visuals in a layer style, but now the objects in three-dimensional world can appear in front of the digital objects, where occlusion is, thanks to that technology and 3D object tracking and volume scanning technologies, it is available right now. So if you remember from the previous sample with the Porsche makes these parking options, these P-ladder can be seen behind the tree. So when you move on, you will see these P-ladders will be just back in the background. It's not a layer in front of the real actual layers. So this is really important with the motion tracking and also volume scanning technologies. And of course, there are so many technologies to talk about, but as a summary, I would like to go with the last one, the focus and depth of field, which is the basic concepts of imagery. As you see, if you are taking pictures, you always like the backgrounds is a blurry way. So this is the depth of field and focus. In XR, it is possible to find exactly where the user's eye are focusing through the specific sensor. So in this case, the text, which are not really important at that time, can be out of focus and your user may become blurred, just like in the depth of field. This is also available. And it is not actually a sample for that, but to get the concept better understood, here is what the typography and the depth of field works as. So this is an artwork by Tu Atrashi called When I'm 64. And you see this is a typographic work with the tilt brush, and it's like a typographic and calligraphic style, but in a three-dimensional world. So you see only the text that you're focusing with, and the other places is just out of blur. So they even do not look like typography, but you can only focus on where you're looking at. It's a really like a photographic experience for special typography. And the last thing that I would like to talk about is the generative text. So the technology has providing us, especially artificial intelligence and machine learning, can generate text both for informative or artistic uses. But here, the dynamic information systems continuously adapt to the dynamic changes on the information of content and the information recipient's intention. However, the authorial power in hypertextual environment has become less defined and has altered the relationship between author, designer, reader, and text. This really explains why it is really important to understand the special typography basics as a generative text, because there is not just a designer, not just an author, not just a reader, and not just the text. There is a relationship between those, and this is a dynamic relationship where the information systems continues to adapt themselves to the system. So where you can see it's we are main interface with the generated text. These texts are not there. It's just generated by, not of course, because this is an old example also from my previous resources, but you can understand that the text that are gaining information from other sources is very important in spatial typography and most of the immersive design principles, because they are not just set up, but also the system is built upon them. And as a conclusion, because I don't want to take too much time anymore, so immersive design technology is trying to respond to new emerging needs with a rapidly increasing popularity. Behind this effort lies the search for solutions for UX problems, especially in hardware. Communication is undoubtedly the most important actor in immersive applications. Spatial typography will be the only guide to both interpersonal communication and computer-to-human communication. And Matthias Hillner states that the temporal disposition of contents which contrast the real-time communication, but not with real-world communication, constitutes the main value of virtual typography. So the typographers will have to understand the new opportunities and challenges offered by immersive designs and spatial typography, and they are going to design the fonts suitable for the best immersive experience in a more dynamic structure and content. For the XR environments, there are so many possibilities within the new principles and the new technologies offering to us. The typography has come to another era where the things that are not possible before is now possible. So it's always exciting for me to try out these new technologies and also new opportunities. And for the next time, I would like to share my work with you, and I hope for that. That's all for my presentation, and thank you for listening. And yes.
Thank you. It was a nice one. Can you hear me, by the way? I guess so, no?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you so much, Barış Hocam.
Thank you, Çakar.
I have many questions in my mind as well, but after we will have some time to, of course, talk about those things.
Mm-hmm.
So our next presentation is about the critical review of video game controller designs from Serafraz Akyaman and Ekrem Jamalpay. I'm not sure. Serafraz is.
I'm going to make.
Okay. Okay. The stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you can see.
Yes, we can see. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Serafraz Akyaman. I'm currently working as a research assistant at Sakarya University and a PhD student at Istanbul Technical University. On behalf of my thesis advisor, Professor Cem Alpay, I'm going to make this presentation about game control devices. We did this study as we found a need for a comprehensive review in the literature about game controllers. So why game controller matter? Let's start from video games. Games are important and worth studying because games and play are culture, part of our culture and lives, and with the digitalized version of them, in other saying, video games, further increase the area of influence and benefit. In addition to providing entertainment, it became available in areas such education or rehabilitation. And also, we can and we should look at video games from human-computer interaction perspective. A user interface acts as a translator between application and user. In video games, user interfaces are called the way players interact with the game and get feedback based on their interactions. Those interactions occur with input and output devices. There are various game platforms, game types, and interaction styles. This situation provides a wide variety of controllers. And we can say that over time, companies have diversified their controllers on dimensions such as control type, such as directional or gestural, and the way of holding one hand or two hands, and also maybe control need to put on a place or on the floor, and the way of wearing maybe on the head or on the arm or feet, and ability to move, degrees of freedom, for example. Variables such as gameplay time, user characteristic, comfortability and ease of use have led the control units to develop continuously. The games vary in areas such as graphic features they use, the design of the game, and the control dimensions required. To play the game, player must take some action, of course. Control interfaces that meditate these playing actions or manipulating the game environment constitute a common point of the games. Many studies show that game controllers, hardwares or softwares, components affect the game, affect the way they play the game, and the pleasure of obtained from the game, and performance of the game, and engagement to the game. The term of player experience mostly cover these aspects. And controllers have been diversified according to the platform usage, performance, command skills. game type and interaction style with the user, also in terms of aesthetics and ergonomics. We can say usage style. When we say usage style, we state that the device is handheld or portable or wearable. With the interaction style, it is gesture-based or motion-based or directional button-based. And this diversity and possibilities reveal the necessity to make an assessment on controllers. And we, based on that, we asked two main questions in this research. First one is, what are the relevant dimensions of video game controllers as seen by players? And the second one, what dimensions do researchers use to evaluate game control devices? As we can see, there are two main dimensions of reviewing. First one from players' perspective, and second one from researchers' perspective. We can say that the main purpose of this study is to compare information obtained from user reviews with the literature and to reveal dimensions that contribute to literature and enable new discussions. Also to share the potential with the subject with industrial designers. So we conduct two different analyses. First one from user perspective. We use content analysis to examine user reviews and questions, answer text in mostly Amazon.com. For two of the controllers, we used YouTube reviews. We picked latest models of game platforms and include VR and wearable controllers. Second, we conduct literature analysis to see researchers' evaluation dimensions of controllers. First, we search about game control devices in general, and we made a genuine classification according to their technologies and user interaction styles. We can see that there are handheld devices such as gamepads, joysticks, and mouses, and wearable devices such as VR headsets or gloves. In addition, there are devices that are not wearable, but players interact with other parts of body besides hands, such as dance pads or gas and brake pedals. And also there are gesture-based systems that are only use camera to create user input and need no other controller devices. And then we identified products that are still up to date and sold through Amazon. And we can say that there are 5 different types of game controls in this research: gamepads, motion controllers, VR controllers, wearables, and assistive controllers. There are, of course, realistic controllers such as racing wheels or drums or aim guns, but we exclude this kind of devices because they are only usable in one type of game. And also we exclude some type of platforms and controllers such as arcade game platforms because they are, there are too many different platforms and controllers and they are not personal or customizable. And mobile gaming platforms like smartphones because of the touchscreen interface. And also we focus original controllers of the platforms and exclude mostly third-party products. And then we analyze review text with the content analysis and reach some descriptive keywords. We can see that most indicated issues are compatibility, battery life, precision, ergonomics, and customization. With compatibility, compatibility includes the platform and additional gaming-related equipment such as headphones. Battery life is of the controller is important, especially with the wireless controllers. Precision is one of the key elements of game performance. Ergonomics also related to performance and enjoyment, and customization related both in-game control arrangements and visible personalization options like controller color. And we grouped those keywords into 4 dimensions: usability, physical specifications, other specifications, and experience-related issues. Some keywords were in more than one group in terms of their scope. We made this grouping to make a more meaningful comparison with the second analysis. And we also prepare some comparative tables. For example, according to compatibility between gaming platforms. In this table, we analyze compatibility capabilities of controllers across platforms. We can see there are various controllers compatible both with PC or a console and a VR system. In addition, these devices can be gamepads, wearable or motion controllers. We can see the possibility of comparison between devices. And movement capability over its parts and features. This table was prepared to help us to make a comparative selection of controllers in terms of mobility. In the second part, in literature analysis, we reviewed controller-related research papers and saw various controller classifications and comparison dimensions. And there are 2 main directions among them: experience-related dimensions and usability-related dimensions. And we compared 2 analyses. We found that the data overlap at a certain level. And we saw also the dimensions that should be included in research papers, such dimensions as compatibility, customization, material selection, and quality. We can summarize review dimensions of controllers as firstly comparing across various types of game controllers and games. We have found that the comparisons are usually done in 1 or few games. We think it would be beneficial to use more variety of games. We can see most researchers mostly compare 2 or 3 type of game controllers in, for example, one game, first person shooter game. This causes the research to be very dependent on the type of game. Secondly, we found that comparison between controller types, especially including VR and wearable controllers, are quite limited. We think that the studies in this field will be beneficial, especially considering the high compatibility between devices and new interaction techniques. And lastly, we saw that there's a need for studies on the emotional and body interaction aspects of formal features of the controllers. As Crick says, controllers can be seen as an extension of the player's body. We think it would be beneficial for industrial product designers to contribute to the field on control devices and product experience. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, we will be happy to answer.
Cool, thank you. It was also another topic that I was working on for a long time, I guess. I was working with peripherals for game experience and how they affect them. But I think that we will have some time afterwards to talk about those things. So the next presentation we have to go on, I guess, is about proposal and requirements for a platform that assists teaching learning in the problematization of design projects by Luisa Grazzotti and Selau, Julio Carlos de Souza Dindan, Carlos Alberto Miranda Duarte, and Temur Lenovina. So I guess
Luisa here.
Yeah, Luisa.
But I don't know what's happening with my camera.
Don't worry. I guess if we, I mean, if we can see and see your presentation and you share your screen, I think it will be okay.
Yes. Here. let me put on presentation. Okay.
Yes,
you can
works.
see it's okay for you?
Yep.
Okay. So good morning. I'm Luisa. I'm going to present a cutout of my thesis. Okay, so all the authors is because I'm a PhD student at URGS in Brazil. So I'm from Brazil and from IAD in Portugal when I did a scholarship last year with the advisors Julio and Carlos. And now I'm in Finland because I came for my last year of my PhD at Aalto with Professor Temo. So the proposal and requirements for a platform that helps teaching and learning in the problematization stage of design projects, it came from the need observed mainly in the classroom of how students deal with the design process. Because it is a dynamic, complex, and flexible process which generates doubts and uncertainties in those who are beginning to design, especially because the students want to start by developing ideas without conducting research, even if they are completely unaware of the project area. With this format not defined, that platform could be a possible solution for this issue. For the thesis, it was defined that the data collection would be done with immersion in academic context by participant observation. So 2 years ago, the Portugal context was inserted by a scholarship. I stayed there 8 months. And the institutions analyzed have many similarities that allowed for comparison in several ways. So I did it on the institution that I'm a professor in Brazil, and this other one that I was like a researcher, yes, in Portugal. So it's FSG and IAD. In addition, the fact that they are two Portuguese-speaking countries that make teaching more similar to the terms used in the teaching learning process, without the need for interpretation or translation for analysis. It makes all the analysis easier. During the entire immersion period in Portugal, data collection was carried out, which was later replicated in classroom practice in Brazil. So all that I saw in Portugal, I did it in Brazil after. And now I finalized the phase that I analyzed all the search, all the data to search for alternatives that could serve as a solution. I will not read in detail here for reasons of time, of course, but these were the observations of the immersion period in the context studied, reflecting the design process of the academics in 3 moments of the undergraduate course. So I searched in 3 subjects in Portugal and replicated everything in other 3 classrooms that I was teaching in Brazil last year. In summary, 3 relevant points stand out. The issue of decision make, the academics' own repertoire, and the flexibility and practice of design. It's notable that the attitudes of the students are surrounded by fears and desires very related to these 3 topics. This is the direct result of all that I observed in this immersion period. It's very necessary to show the academics that the problematization is the understanding of the design problem as a project opportunity. So take the word problem out and put in the context the word opportunity to them to see it. And this is very important in the teaching area and the teaching learning process for the students, because oh, sorry, I saw now that this is a wrong image, because this is in Portuguese in the end here, but it's okay. So they start to see not as a problem for the project, but as an opportunity. So you can have a solution for this. You need to transform this view. More than 90 design methods from the design literature have been reviewed, of course, on the thesis, not just for this point of the thesis, but at it all, mainly by observing how the research, understanding, and data collection phase proposed by the authors is presented. So here we have some of them. The forms of research, or as we call analysis, were verified and compiled for better understanding, and also organized in 8 dimensions according to objectives and subjects. So the platform requirements were generated for the development of the platform from the observations in all immersion performed. So here we have all the requirements that I should make something that it's okay for that. And 4 possibilities were considered for this project. So the first one is an explanatory leaflet to fill in. The second one was like card games with a project map. The third one is an interactive digital platform. And the last one is a game, it's gamification for projects. So all these proposed is focused on the problematization stage, but all of them also can be used for the rest of the projects, and not just for design projects. It can be used in another areas for another type of projects, and of course just for creativity, or just for problematization, or just for the last stage. Everything could be, it's editable for use. The possibilities were checked according to the requirements, and the interactive digital platform was chosen as the best option. It is currently under development, so in this time we are developing it, and the testing phase starts in the second half of this year. I will test this proposal again with 3 classes in Portugal and 3 in Brazil, also in the same stage of the course. But with coronavirus, I don't know how I will make it work. Maybe I will make workshops by Zoom with the students, because in Brazil probably we will not come back in this second part of this year. We will not have presential classes. So I'm not sure how to make it in Brazil this year, but in Portugal I know that it will work starting in September, if I'm not wrong. And we can see some advantages of this option that I choose, verifying that we can map in a lot of academic interests, or trendings that we can see a lot of things, because one of the requirements here is enable consultation after the project development. So with this platform, after the project ends, we can come back and check. So we can map like the areas of interest of the institutions by country, by regions, by design skills. We can map in the type of projects that are developing in some area. We can make a blind review for the professors evaluating the projects. We can make mapping scholar thinking, so because every institution have a type of teaching, of course, and to see design. We can use this platform for database with history of the institution as a documentation, because in Brazil and of course in other countries, we need to prove what we do with the students and in the classes. So we can see a lot of advantage of this interactive digital platform. And finally, this proposal encourages students in the importance of understanding the project opportunity, because they are not really interested in problematization. They just want to start the project with the creativity. And sometimes they doesn't know about the area of the project, or they doesn't understand what they are doing, what's about that project. And the result is like a tool that aims to assist the teaching learning process in design, but not just in design, as I said, because a lot of subjects are teaching by project, and we need to consider it. But can also be a support for the general use of methods, of course, because methods is not for just for design, and understanding of the project problems, because we have a big problem by this phase that we need to understand the problems before give solutions. And this is a little difficult for a student because they are very creative. So they just want to give the ideas, but the idea needs to be sustainable, need to be supported by a search, by a data. And these open possibilities for other projects phases to be worked on in the future. So as I said, I'm working on the problematization step because it's my point of interest for my thesis. But I don't know, maybe in a postdoc or for other PhD students or something, it's important to show that every stage of the project is important. And everyone should be analyzed, and we need to be able to give our students other ways to understand the project and to understand that everything is flexible. We don't need to start with the research, but it's better if they understand that starting with the research, you can make a better creativity part, but you need to come back and you need to go on again. So this is important to the flexibility part to understand too. So it's a practice part of my thesis. Of course, I even doesn't put something about theoretical part here, and it will be in next March. Thank you.
Okay, thank you as well, Luisa. Thanks for that. And I have interesting suggestions about that as well. So thank you so much. And for all the other attendees, I think this is our last paper that we have discussed. So this time we have some time, at least like 10 minutes at most, for some questions, if I'm not mistaken. So if you have any questions, feel free to either write it on chat or ask it directly. I will begin, if you will, to enhance break the ice, enhance the conversation. Barış Atiker, if you are here, Barış Hocam, I have some question because I was interested on typography on virtual spaces. And I was wondering if you think that the typography in virtual environments somehow become like sculptures. I mean, do you think the typography in the city sculptures, in terms of city sculptures, that was my question. If Barış Hoca is here, of course. Maybe not. Barış Hoca yok galiba. Okay.
Barış, is he here?
I also texted him immediately.
Hello, sorry for that. Guys, by the way, I'm in a jury right now for our communication design graduation project. Sorry for that, I'm just following two screens right now. But my ears were with you, so I can just notice that you are calling me. So
Yeah.
no problem.
So I was asking Barış Hocam about like the typography in virtual environments. Do you think that they can be considered as virtual sculptures?
Yes, that's an approach, as we can solve the sculptures are three-dimensional formal objects which give the messages. So sorry for that.
Graduation
sorry,
project.
it's just the communication problem. So yes, they can be called like three-dimensional sculptures, which has these meaning and purpose at the same time in a virtual or a realistic space, whatever it is. But the thing is, as you can have the sculpture as a textural object and a formic object, it can be applied to typography because that was not available before with the print or the motion design. And what is much more important than whatever is seen by a sculptural object and a three-dimensional typography is the interaction. So if you can interact with a sculpture in a real environment, it is same applicable to the typography in immersive spaces. So you can get an interaction with this. That's why I haven't think this before as a sculpture, but it applies. Thanks for that.
No problem, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So any more questions from anyone?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much, everyone, for a very interesting session on playful experience design. I've got a question about the first paper and cultural heritage. If I'm right, actually I'm a bit worried that most of the literature references were from the computer science point of view, and only minority from arts and humanities. End user needs are very much into my field, and I'm just wondering, were there any references that were dealing with end user needs for cultural heritage?
Actually, to answer that, I need to reference to the literature by reading them really in detail. But as far as I observed, the end user comments are one of the approaches to relate the game with cultural heritage, but it's the majority, I guess. The count is not that much.
Yeah, to me, this is quite worrying that we are looking at from the computer science of view what the users should do or use, what they should need, and we are not looking at the actual users themselves.
Yes.
Thank you.
I also want to add, Veli, that I agree on that because I was in my master's thesis, I was working on cultural heritage, on a cultural heritage site while we were trying to actually imply a game to teach kids, and we were trying to evaluate their experiences. Not from the side of engineering, but from the side of humanities, we were trying to do that. Our article was called V Hunters. And yeah, I think that it's still the case. I mean, back then there was this problem of computer science, field of computer science, focusing on the idea of using games in order to educate somehow, and creating edu games maybe, but not the humanities. But these days, I think there is a paradigm shift towards the social sciences, I guess. And yes, more questions do we have? Or do we have time? I'm not sure.
If you have questions, I think we have a couple of minutes more, but at the 11:30 with the Turkish time, we will have another session. I'm sharing its meeting info at the chat section. So if you don't have any questions, I would like to thank all the presenters and our chair, PUDCAD. for their contribution. So I think we don't have any more questions.
I guess not.
So see you at like in 10 minutes. Bye, everyone.
See you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.